As time went on, the cell members had to become better and better and better at their craft, and their craft was destruction. And so they started what was called the book club. They would train one another on how to build incendiary devices.
And they would go out and test all these things. So they knew how long it would take, you know, at this time of night, in this kind of weather, how long will it take for this thing to ignite? What type of fuel would work the best? They wouldn't buy all the ingredients from the same store. Even if the same store had the 2 or 3 items that they need, they would go to a completely different store, you know, 30, 40 miles away, so it wouldn't ever be tracked.
It was called the book club because they also utilized certain codes.
At the meeting, they were told this is the book we'll be using, and then you'd have to use your book that would associate what page number, what line number, what word number, and that's how you would decode the message to tell you where to go.
Some of the members of the book club then were more well versed in computer sciences, and they brought in PGP encryption and showed the other members how to do that.
There was a lot of like having good covers for why you're leaving town, why you're not leaving, you know, where you're going, having really good stories that made sense, that were consistent, that you told everyone, your job, your family, everything. Not dressing like activists per se. We didn't really look like what you think we would look like. I mean, if you saw people walking down the street, you would never think, that's the ELF.
It made a lot of sense of why there wasn't any evidence, why they weren't caught sooner. They were really good at what they did.
In May of 2001, members of the ELF launched an attack against 2 sites at once, a first for the organization. The first target was an office at the University of Washington, where a scientist was doing genetic research on trees with a grant from the timber industry. The second target was the Jefferson Poplar Tree Farm, where the group believed that genetically engineered trees were being developed for paper production. In the previous arson, Daniel had been a lookout, but this time he took a much more active role.
They rented a motel room. They set up a tent inside the motel room. They put on painter suits, triple thick gloves. They made the devices.
One team went to University of Washington, and the other team traveled down to Claxon, Oregon, to Jefferson Poplar Farms.
Clatskanie is a really small town. We're desperately trying to avoid a traffic stop because it's just like we're pretty much screwed if we got stopped. There's way too many people in the car dressed in all black.
The driver of the vehicle was Miss Savoy. Miss Zacher served as a lookout. And then the 3 men, which was Mr. Meyerhoff, Mr. McGowan, and Mr. Block, took the fuel loads and the timers to the targets.
We checked that no one's there, like climb around, look around, no one's in there. We've been there previous, no one's there. The cleaning ladies there like much earlier. We set up all the devices and all the buckets.
They put little tubs full of fuel underneath the vehicles, and they put soaked rags, and they'd run the rags from vehicle to vehicle to vehicle.
And the towel just goes and it goes and it goes and it goes, and it's tied together in sheets, and it's an absolute mess.
They were careful to take the trucks with the fuel tanks, fill the beds of the vehicles with fuel.
I'm standing there, I'm drenched in gasoline. We're about to burn 13 huge SUVs, and I was just like, what am I doing?
But we take spray paint. Myself and another person go out to the shed, and I write ELF on one side in like pretty huge letters, and the other person writes, "You cannot control what is wild."